We're going to do a classic Neapolitan ragu. And this is a sauce that my grandmother always made, my maternal grandmother. So you need tomatoes, you need celery, you need carrots, and you need meat, because ragu means a meat sauce. And for this, we want to have some pork and beef. And you can use something that's going to take a long time to cook, because this is a low simmered sauce. This is a sauce that's going to take about an hour and a half to cook. So let me move this out of the way now and show you how this goes. So you want to have some olive oil again, heating up in a pan. Let me turn that on. Let me turn my pasta water down, because we'll use that later on, and cover that. So some olive oil in the pan. And then, I'm going to move this over here so you can see the meat first. I'm using today top round. There it is. Top round steak and spare ribs. You can use bone-in spare ribs. You can use boneless spare ribs. And you see how nice and meaty they are. So I want to put them right in the pan with some olive oil. You want about 1/4 of a cup of extra virgin olive oil for meaty spare ribs. So use a big enough pan to do this. So there are our spare ribs. We're going to let those brown now. I'm going to give them a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper while I do the round steak for you. So here's our round steak. Now we have to do something to this. We have to give this a little bit of salt and some pepper. And my grandmother used to like to use coarse black pepper, something that was called butcher's pepper, but you could use just regular pepper as well. And then you need some garlic. And again, I'm going to put that right into my little trusty machine here and whiz that up. I keep telling you, these little gadgets are great in the kitchen. And then we can take that and just put it on the meat. I'll spread it around in a minute. So there's our garlic. And then we also want with this some parsley and some cheese. And for this I like to use a good pecorino cheese, an aged sheep's milk cheese. There's our parsley. We're going to spread that around on top of the meat. Look at how beautiful that looks. And I'm going to cut that meat in half. And then we want that pecorino cheese over the top. I'm going to cut it right here. You want to make sure when you get this that you're using something that's about 1/4 of an inch thick. And then you need string. You need kitchen string to tie all this. So now I'm just going to spread that garlic around a little bit and roll each piece up, just like a jelly roll. Make sure it's tight. You know, sometimes we would put hard-boiled egg in this and some oil-cured black olives. So let me come back here now, turn this down, see how we're doing. Okay, those are looking good. I need to turn them now to get good and crusty. We don't want those to be raw when we put the sauce in. I'll turn them around. Okay, now back to this. Here we have our string, and you want to cut it up into pieces. Remember, you want to use kitchen string for this, not your sewing threads that can melt in the oven. And then you just go underneath the meat and tie it. So you want to hold that filling in. So tie the meat in several places, making sure you make a tight knot there. So there's our second one. And that goes in. And now I do have to wash my hands. When you're dealing with raw meat in the kitchen, you always want to make sure you wash your hands in hot, soapy water. Okay, so we have that. But now we also need some vegetables. So here's some celery and carrot. And you just want to take those and just coarsely chop them up. These are going to be your flavor agents for your sauce. So just coarsely chop them. Then we want some onion. So here's an onion. Just want to cut it up. So there's our onion. And all of that goes in. I'm going to move that around a little bit. Get that brajol really nice and brown. Okay, now besides that, we need tomatoes. And here you have options, because these tomatoes are just canned tomatoes, plum tomatoes. You could also use fresh tomatoes from your garden. So for a sauce like this, you need 3 28-ounce cans of canned tomatoes. And we also want some fresh basil, essential to a good ragu. So you take fresh basil leaves and you just want to rip them up, and put them right into the pan. Don't use dried basil for this because it really doesn't have much flavor. If you don't happen to have tomatoes that are really sweet, you can always add a pinch of sugar to the tomatoes. So we're going to stir that in. Your meat is browned. You turn this down, turn it down, add the tomatoes, and we're going to allow this to cook for about an hour and a half. Now here's a trick when using tomatoes. After you put them into the pan, you want to add some wine to the can, of course, because that will clean the can out for you and get all that residue tomato that's left behind. So I just swirl it in every can that I've used, pour the wine in with the tomatoes, stir that around, and in it goes. So once you have the sauce made, what you need to do is fish out all of the meat. You want to get the meat cold because then it's easier to cut. Then you can put it in a bake dish and reheat it. So I'm going to take the brajol out for you. So here it is, that nice piece. Here's a nice piece we did earlier. Bring it right over to a cutting board. You see how nice that stayed together. So get all the strings off. Throw them away. And then you cut the meat. You see, it's much easier to cut it when it's cold because it'll cut into really nice slices. So you want to make sure you do this cold and then you can reheat it. Then you take it, put it in a nice bake dish. You want to put a little sauce down in the base. Take a little bit of that sauce, put it right down in the base, like that. And then put your meat in. Then once you have it like that, you give it a little bit of cheese over the top, a little more sauce, just like that. Cover, put it in the oven, and that's ready to go.